Welcome, guys, to my Kozilek the Great Distortion EDH deck profile. This is my pride and joy. I've been working on this deck for like 5 years. You'll notice a lot of it's foiled out. I've been collecting it for a long time. I'm actually going to lock it in a safety deposit box after this video, but I thought I might record something just so it's out there and play it once in a blue moon, send my kids to college with it. I don't know. Some of this stuff got really expensive, so the premise of this deck is very simple. You want to ramp into a Kozilek as fast as possible. There are ways to do it on turn 1 if you're lucky, but turn 2, 3, or 4, not unreasonable. For those that don't know, when you cast him, you reset your entire hand up to 7, and you can discard cards in your hand to counter spells with the same converted mana cost. So he also has a 12/12 with Menace. So he's a win condition and a control effect. So this entire stack is ramp, and we're going to get to the choices in a minute, but a lot of these ramp cards will become counter spells. It is crucial that you get your Kozilek out quick, because then you draw 7 and then you can just continue. If they get rid of it, you can cast it again and keep drawing. So it's actually the perfect commander in that sense. 1v1, super strong, you'd be surprised. Anyway, I'm going to go into the land choices first. I have 3 basic wastes. There's a couple search for basic effects in here. They're basic lands. Sweet. A strip mine, a wasteland, and a dust bowl. Mostly in here because they're pretty, I'm not going to lie. But cracking a utility land can actually be really, really useful. So, yeah, I would recommend playing at least one of them. I've got my Locust package. So Cloud Post will tap for 1 mana of each Locust. And then Glimmer Post is also a Locust. So what you want to do is, if you can get these 2 out, then this is tapping for 2. But if you also include Vesuva and Thespian Stage, you can actually copy the Cloud Post, and then you're tapping for 4, 5, or 6, right? So, and there's other uses for these 2, but the primary use is copying those Locusts, so then you can make extra mana. Obvious choice, Eye of Ugin. This is an MVP. Reduces the cost of Eldrazi by 2, and you can search for colorless creatures. The bread and butter of your deck. This deck does play all of the Eldrazi, you'll see. But it doesn't play a lot of the fluff choices. It wants to be efficient, so we play the biggest and baddest bombs. We've got Eldrazi Temple. Taps for 2 for Eldrazi spells. Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. Taps for 2 once you have 7 or more lands. Ancient Tomb taps for 2 at the cost of 2 life. That 2 life does add up, but you can shut this off later. I'll show you. And Temple of the False God. A lot of people hate this card, but it does tap for 2, and I am a big fan. We also have Guildless Commons. This is basically, you bounce a land and it taps for 2 colorless, like a lot of those other ones that are played, but it's actually pretty good. You'd be surprised, so I do recommend it. Sanctum of Ugin. Basically, you can pop this to search for a colorless creature, which, I mean, it's very relevant later on, especially late game. This is a newer addition, Urza Saga. This card's great. It's weird. It's an enchantment land, originally tapping for 1. Then you're making a construct, and then you're searching your library on step 3 for an artifact card with 0/1 mana cost. So Crypt, Vault, Soul Ring. Super efficient tutor. Super efficient card. Really, really, really great addition. We also have Tron. When you have all 3, Tron taps for 7 mana. Colorless mana. It is not uncommon for me to drop a Tron if a game goes long enough. And at that point you might already be winning, but it definitely is relevant. And why not? Why play waste when you can have a utility piece like this? I have 1 land that doesn't tap for mana, and that's Maze of Ith, and I also play Mystifying Maze. This deck doesn't have a ton of creatures. You will often be overwhelmed by decks that go wide. These 2 can really help. And also, Maze of Ith and Mystifying Maze get rid of any Voltron. I don't know if people are still playing Voltron as much, but you can really mess up a Voltron player super easily. So I would highly recommend these. And the Maze of Ith isn't always not tapping for mana because of this card, Urborg. So yes, you can play Urborg in a colorless deck. It doesn't have a color identity. It turns everything into swamps. This also means turning your Eye of Ugin into a land that taps, Maze of Ith into a land that taps, and it shuts off things like Ancient Tomb that are going to do damage to you in the late game. So amazing card. Amazing. Cavern of Souls, obvious. We don't want our stuff to be countered. I know Eldrazi are cast triggers, but you still want the body. So Homeward Path, stealing our Eldrazi is pretty detrimental. This will just tap and get us back. You know, someone plays a steal spell, this just deals with it. Inventor's Fair, tutoring for artifacts seems good in a deck full of artifacts. Gemstone Caverns. This is a cute choice, but you can actually really speed up your game if you open with this in your starting hand. So exiling a card going down to 6 doesn't really matter depending on what you're exiling, but getting those lands into play quick is more important. Hall of the Bandit Lord does enter tapped, I know, but having haste on a 12/12 menace that does 12 commander can be pretty scary. So good card. Buried Ruin, crack this, get an artifact back, seems good. Crystal Vein, taps for 1, sacrifice it, add 2, just gets you there sometimes if you're at 9 and you're ready to go. Scavenger Grounds, we can't play Bojuka Bog, so we play this. Some graveyard decks are mean, we don't like them. Man Beacon, if Kozilek gets too expensive, you can always crack this and put him in your hand. War Room, another one I just started to use. Pay 3 and tap it. Pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's identity, draw a card. We don't have any colors in our identity, so we're just paying 3 life, or paying 0 life and 3 mana to draw. So it's basically 4 to draw. Pretty good. Reliquary Tower, duh. I mean, you don't always really need it, but it's a good card. Majoring Network. This, if you have excess mana on any turns, you can store it. So you'd be surprised at how good this actually can be. Blast Zone. Another MVP card. Basically Pernicious Deed land, more or less. You have to build it up, sure, but on turns with excess mana, another good place to dump it. This card saved my butt so many times. And last but certainly not least, Rogue's Passage. Getting through with your commander, 12 commander damage, it's relevant. Okay. So I said before, this deck is a ramp deck. These are all ramp cards. Again, I've collected over the years. You're going to see some crazy stuff in here, but just basically we're ramping. So some easy stuff, Burnished Heart, get some wastes. Jario's Familiar reduces historic cost, which includes your Eldrazi by 1 and all your artifacts by 1. Metalworker. In some scenarios with the haste outlet, this can lead to a turn 1 Kozilek play with the right hand. It's got to be a god hand, but this card is insane. And I mean, there's a reason why it's on reserve list, and there's a reason why it's super powerful, especially with any untapping effects that you might see later on. So a lot of times people see this hit the table and kill it. It's really good. Palladium Mire, taps for 2 colorless, can be a blocker, why not? Solemn Simulacrum, searches for basic, dies and draws. Assault Monolith, taps for 3 colorless. Chromatic Lantern, again, shutting off those lands that damage you or don't tap for mana, turning them into mana lands. Good ability. Do it. Coalition Relic. It's more of a cute one. I just like the charge counters, because then you can add up mana and stack the mana if you can't do anything that turn. So any effect like that can get pretty powerful. Darksteel Ingot. Can't die. That's neat, right? Everflowing Chalice. Stacking counters on this can be strong late game. I'm a big fan of any type of effect like that, so scaling is good. Expedition Map. Searching for Eye of Ugin. Really important. Eye of Ugin is the best card in this deck, so you play this to get it. Forsaken Monument. An anthem for your colorless creatures. Not often mattering, but doubling the amount of colorless a permanent taps for. Very good. I know it's 5-drop, but still. And whenever you cast a colorless spell, gain 2 life. That will matter. Gilded Lotus, 5 to tap for 3. Sure, good card though. Grim Monolith. This is the reason I'm putting this deck in a safety deposit box. Yes, this is a foil Grim Monolith. It's probably a PSA 9. I picked it up many years ago, and the value on this thing is just too scary to keep in my house anymore. But I also can't part with it. It's kind of I'm a little attached. So yeah, I mean, it taps for 3 colorless. It costs 2 mana. You can pay 4 to untap it. This really helps you scale up quick. And there are untap effects in here that you'll see. Guardian Idol, cute one. Turns into a blocker though, so it actually has saved my butt a couple times. Hedron Archive, taps for 2. You can crack it and draw extra cards. What's not to love? Another newer choice, Jeweled Lotus. I mean, it's 0 for 3. It's a Black Lotus for your commander. How can you not love it? Mana Crypt, duh. 2 colorless for 0, seems good. There's ways to gain life, who cares? Mana Vault, pay 1, tap for 3. Again, what we want to do is get the Kozilek fast. Mind Stone, cute, and it gives you a draw later. Moon Silver Key, crack this to search for Crypton Vault, Soul Ring, Mox Opal, whatever you want. Or a basic land, but you're never doing that. Mox Opal, 0, tapping for 1, really good. This is a cute one. Petrier's Seal. It's a newer card. You can tap for 1 color, or you could pay 1 and untap target legendary creature you control. So I said one of the weaknesses here is you don't have blockers. This guy will untap your general for 1 mana. It's pretty good. Sisei's Ring, 4 for 2 colorless. Seems good. Soul Ring, 1 for 2 colorless. Duh. Another newer card. Stone Speaker Crystal. You can exile graveyards with this if you want to and draw cards, and it's 4 for 2. And I like anything that taps for 2 or more colorless because I can use my keys. So, and you'll see that later. Thought Vessel, sure, everyone likes Thought Vessel. Grand Dynamo, Urgolem's Eye, same concepts, they tap for extra colorless. Urza's Incubator, card's really good. Reduces the cost of a chosen creature type by 2. Obviously, we're picking Eldrazi. I play Wayfarer's Bauble just because it's 1 mana. You get a waste, but I mean, who cares? It's just a 1 mana card. And then a Worn Power Stone. So this is the ramp package. Now, keep in mind, yes, you're going to say, whoa, I'm drawing all these ramp cards late game. It doesn't matter. Because if Kozilek is in play, these are all counter spells with a variety of CMCs. So they can turn into utility pieces. And a lot of them have utility effects too, you'll notice. So there's a double whammy. But these cards are great. So really want to go fast. Now the utility parts, top and scroll rack. So because Kozilek has to counter comparatively to a CMC, these guys can help you switch the cards in your hand to get to the CMC you might need. So don't sleep on these effects in this deck. They're very powerful. I have 2 counter spells in here. Warping Whale and Not of This World. Warping Whale will counter a sorcery. That's pretty relevant. It also could make a blocker if you want. Not of This World. Counter target spell or ability that targets a permanent you control. It costs 7 less, so it's free if it's targeting a spell that targets a creature you control with power 7 or greater. So a lot of times people will see me tapped out with Kozilek and be like, okay, time to kill it. And I have this in my hand. It really catches them off guard. This card is actually so sweet. Try it out. I have 2 untapper effects. These combo with any artifact that taps for 2 or more colorless, especially Metal Worker. Really good. And the key actually will make your creature unblockable too. So that's I don't know why they did that. Well, He was already so good. Now Manifold Key's even better. So plus they're 1-drops. Counter those paths. I have Swiftfoot Boots, Lightning Greaves, and Commander's Plate. These 2 obvious choices. Haste, protection. This guy, equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that's not in your commander's color identity. So this gives it protection from every color. Seems really good. And it's a 1-drop, equipped for 3. I have removal, a little bit. Scour from Existence, Introduction to Annihilation. These are just colorless, exile anythings. Yes, they're expensive, but it doesn't really matter in this deck, I promise. Ugin the Ineffable. This card's amazing. It reduces colorless spells. by 2, and it has a removal ability on it, and a little fun draw ability. And then there's Karn. I mean, Karn is Karn. You never ult him. Most of the time you're minusing. He's still really great. Board wipes. Pernicious Vault, Oblivion Stone. They basically act as the same kind of thing. You have to get creative with board wipes and colorless. This exiles, this doesn't, but they're both really strong. And then an O Stone can protect your permanents too. You also have All Its Dust, obvious choice, and the other obvious choice, Ugin the Spirit Dragon. And this card's busted, dude. Like, probably the second best card in this deck. This card wins games. I've got now my utility pieces. Sculpting Steel, oftentimes copying Ramp, but they can copy any artifact, so, I mean, use it wisely, but a lot of times you're just copying a rock to go even faster. Mystic Forge. Mystic Forge is in that new Necron deck if you guys are playing. This card's just bonkers. You can look at the top card of your library anytime. You can cast it if it's an artifact or colorless non-land card. This is adding an extra card to your hand, basically. And you can pay 1 life to exile the top card of your library. So if you don't want to land, you can dig it away. You can just dig with it. It's really good. Wandering Archaic. He's cute. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, they may pay 2. If they don't, you copy it. It's annoying. There's a backside to it. You never use the backside, I promise. He's sort of like a Rhystic Study Smothering Tide kind of thing. Really strong. Void Winnower. This annoys everyone. I've cut it and uncut it so many times. You don't even realize the impact it has, but your opponents can't even. So they can't cast even spells, they can't attack with even creatures. He's also an Eldrazi, so your Eldrazi reduction works. Just really good. Silent Arbiter. Okay. I've said it a couple times. Going wide with this deck can really hurt you. Silent Arbiter means they can only attack you with 1 creature and only block you with 1 creature. So he is your... Plus he's got 5 toughness. Great blocker. And he combos with Kozilek, who has Menace. So with Silent Arbiter on the board, Menace means unblockable. So he really makes that commander damage simple. And it's only 2 hits with a Kozilek to kill someone. So don't sleep on this guy either. He's really fun. Oblivion Sower. He's a ramp effect. He's reduced by Eldrazi reducers. And he combos well with Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, if you cast them in that order. So, yeah, great card. Conduit of Ruin. Tutors on cast and reduces the colorless cost of colorless creatures. Geode Golem. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, cast your commander. He's only 5 mana. This can scare the crap out of people or actually work, so it's worth it to me. And then the obvious, the last 4 cards. Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. Annihilator 4. Removes something when you cast him. He's probably the least impactful, and he's still incredibly powerful. Ceaseless Hunger. Exile 2 on cast. Attacks. Eats a library by 20 cards, and then you cast your Sower and grab all the lands. Obviously, very good. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. It's basically a second copy of your commander without the counter spells, but the Annihilator is relevant. Drawing 4 cards is relevant. It's very good. And last but not least, Emrakul, the Promised End. Probably the meanest and most fun card for you in this deck. Stealing an opponent's turn on the cast. It's got protection from instants, flying, and trample, and it's a 13/13 that reduces its own cost. This card, if you're smart, will not only take out one of your opponents, but potentially have the game won for you when you resolve it. So, and it's really easy to play. So that is my Kozilek, the Great Distortion deck profile. I challenge you to just try it out and see how efficient it actually is. Colorless is real. You can actually do it. Give it a shot. I've worked on this for years. There are some cute choices, yes, but it doesn't really matter. It's very efficient. So give it a try. I promise you will enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, guys.